Well, the world ringing in the new year amid a global pandemic. We'll show you what it looked like here in mid-Michigan. And the big house opening back up, but not for fans. How the stadium is helping with COVID-19 vaccines.
I never dreamed anything like that would happen.
An emotional send-off for one firefighter who served his community for 2 decades. See the entire show of support. It's time to wake up mid-Michigan. It is January 1st, 2021.
With coverage you can count on, this is WNEMTV5 News.
Well, good morning. Happy New Year to all of you. Hope you all had a fun and safe celebration. We are starting off a bit chilly here this morning. Here's a live look of downtown Saginaw right there. Quiet landscape out there this morning. Thanks so much for watching TV5 News at 9. I'm Blake Keller. So glad that you can join us. Meteorologist Chris Eastlick also here in the First Warn 5 Weather Center. But all that quiet, of course, could change, Chris.
Yeah, as is the case oftentimes in the winter months. As soon as we get a break, our next round of winter weather on the way for tonight. And because of that, we've got winter weather advisories that are now issued for pretty much the southern half of the TV5 viewing area. It looks like that's in effect for areas of the Thumb along I-69 around the Tri-Cities into the west towards Mount Pleasant. Those go into effect around noon and last until 6 a.m. on Saturday. So an extended period of time, but moving a little bit faster than our last storm system. Your First Warn 5 pinpoint Doppler radar live from MBS does show a little snow showing up on radar, but much of that is aloft and not reaching the ground just yet. The better chances for precip still reside off to our south and will do so for the next couple of hours. It's not going to be until later in the afternoon that we start to see that. We've got temperatures that are in the teens and 20s right now, but Oscoda has been running cold pretty much all morning long at about 4 degrees. Saginaw, you're at 18, Midland at 12, Owasso at 21, and Flint at 25. Thankfully, though, our winds have lightened up significantly. We're not seeing much of a wind chill out there, a few degrees of difference, but it could certainly be a lot worse. The next 12 hours, we'll see the clouds continue to move back in. Looks like temperatures will be right around the upper 20s to low 30s much of the time. Don't really approach freezing until later on this evening, so slick roads, a definite possibility going into tonight. We'll break down how much snow and rain to expect. That's all coming up.
All right, Chris, thank you. Well, we can finally say 2020 is over and the world ring in the new year with fireworks and celebrations, but also with coronavirus restrictions still in place. Naomi Ruckham is in Times Square.
From Sydney, Australia to Athens, Greece, the world bid good riddance to 2020.
I just want to say goodbye to being bored at home.
And welcomed 2021 with optimism.
It's getting off my butt and finally doing a lot of things I've been telling myself I'm going to do for years. I think like 2021 is the year to go do it.
Midnight celebrations around the world were scaled back due to coronavirus restrictions, with some city centers void of any revelers. In New Zealand, the party went on like any other year after the country successfully kept the virus under control.
I mean, we did the right things. Now we can celebrate.
More than 1 million people typically cram into New York's Times Square to watch the crystal ball drop. However, this year, only a small number of frontline workers were allowed into the area.
The ball dropped without a hitch, and New Yorkers are looking ahead to better days.
Stamp this virus out and get on with our lives.
With a record 125,000 Americans currently hospitalized due to COVID-19, the pandemic is far from over.
We do not have enough healthcare workers.
Pulmonologist Dr. Aaron Millstone hopes 2021 didn't kick off with super spreader events.
If you go to a large New Year's party, it's highly likely that somebody at that New Year's party is going to be infected.
In Wuhan, China, where reports of the coronavirus first came out on New Year's Eve 2019, masked revelers crowded together and released balloons as the clock hit midnight. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
Across mid-Michigan, bars and restaurants celebrating the new year with just takeout rather than those large gatherings which they usually see every New Year's Eve.
COVID's been knocking us left and right.
It's just sad to think about where we are right now and what was.
Restaurants now kicking off 2021 in a tough spot. Kurt Broussard with Downtown Restaurant Investments, which operates in Bay City and Midland, says altogether they have laid off around 100 employees, and they're only operating at about 1/3 of their normal business. That's the same for most restaurant owners right now.
We're doing about 5%. I've been having to personally finance to keep the restaurant afloat until we can keep going, because, you know, vendors don't change, overhead doesn't really change, you know, trying to keep as much staff as I can. And that's probably the hardest part, is telling, you know, people that, you know, I care about, that work for me, that I'm sorry, but you don't have a job anymore.
Well, that's the voice of Amberlynn Hales, the owner of My Table in Bay City. She says her business went from a staff of 40 to just 2. Certainly a hard year, but those challenges aren't stopping these restaurant owners. They're looking forward to a brighter future.
You got to be positive about it, right? You got to think, you know, next year's going to be quite the champagne explosion.
With indoor dining set to return within the next few weeks and more people getting the coronavirus vaccine, 2021 could end with celebrations bigger than ever. Still unfolding, investigators are trying to track down a pair of suspects in a deadly home invasion. The Huron County Sheriff's Office says 2 armed men entered a home on Rapson Road, northeast of Bad Axe, around 11:15 Wednesday night and shot and killed a 59-year-old man. The sons of the victim, who were home during the invasion, told deputies the suspects wore black ski masks, gloves, and leather coats. Investigators say the suspects made a reference to wanting, quote, the money before killing the victim, and that victim has been identified as Ricky Bailey. A consumer alert, the FDA announcing a recall for certain sport mix pet foods. At least 28 dogs have died from the products containing aflatoxin. That's a mold that can grow on certain pet food ingredients, including corn. Symptoms include sluggishness, loss of appetite, vomiting, jaundice, and diarrhea. Now, for a specific list of the products, just go to the hot link section of WNEM.com.
He was great at his job. I always was very in awe of him for that.
An emotional send-off caught on camera for an Ann Arbor firefighter battling colon cancer. 45-year-old Craig Singlinger wheeled down the hospital hallway as his colleagues of 20 years lined the corridor. The father of 2 is on his way to home hospice after getting cancer diagnosis just over a year ago. His wife says they were blindsided by the news, but the fire chief, Mike Kennedy, says firefighters face higher risk long after the fire is out.
Firefighters have a 9% chance of contracting cancer than the general population and a 14% higher chance of dying from cancer.
Singlinger spent 20 years with the Ann Arbor Fire Department. For the last 10 years, he was a training officer and EMS coordinator. That made this emotional send-off even more meaningful.
They lined up and saluted him. I never dreamed anything like that would happen. I'm just in awe of the support.
More than 45 firefighters and EMS personnel filled the parking lot, red and blue lights flashing as Singlinger headed home. One last time in the fire truck seat he filled for decades. Still ahead, Republican lawmakers planning to block vote certifications for the election. What impact that could have and how other senators are responding. And you don't have to tackle your New Year's resolutions alone. We'll tell you how you can get some help from your furry friends.